Well then, let's put it together for the cast of Superman Lois! It's Sunday. We do whatever we want.
I think it's on.
Hello?
Hey! Hi, beautiful friends!
Hello.
How has Chicago been treating everybody so far?
Amazing as always. As always.
As always. Ooh, I love that. Friends in the audience, this is your experience as much as this is our experience up here. So there's 2 microphones. There's one right there in that spotlight and one right there in that spotlight. If you would like to, without throwing elbows, begin lining up now. Beautiful friends up here are happy to start talking to you as soon as possible and for as long as possible today. So you do that right now. And I'm gonna ask, what's our favorite cosplay that we've seen? Has anyone come dressed up as your characters, or is there a Superman and Lois cosplay that you would like to see at a future convention?
I'd like to see somebody do our Bizarro or Doomsday. That'd be cool. That'd be pretty intense, also, by the way.
Wasn't there an Atom Man yesterday, or did I make that up? I was really jet lagged.
A what?
The Atom Man.
Atom Man?
ATOM.
I don't believe I saw Atom Man yesterday.
Oh, then it was jet lag. I've been in Europe for 3 weeks. I also slipped and I almost ate it. He caught me.
We almost lost Bitsie yesterday.
The handshakes are going awkwardly, so if you're doing photo ops with me, just expect all kinds of awkwardness. Yeah.
All right, are we ready to start talking to our beautiful friends in the audience?
Let's go. Let's go.
Start on this side. What is your name? Where are you from? And why is this our first question?
Hi, my name is Gabrielle. I'm from the Chicago area. I have a question for all of you guys. What is your favorite DC ship? Aside from Superman and Lois, obviously. But just anyone.
Favorite
Lex and Lois.
And the name of your
we
fan
can't
fiction
say us.
account is?
Not gonna happen.
Lexus.
I'm going to go with,
And they lived happily ever after.
Free money from Lexus.
I'm going with Iris and the Flash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Iris and the Flash.
Thank you for such a spicy start to the panel.
Thank you.
Hi, nice friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
I'm Nick. I'm from Iowa.
Woo. The whole state, be specific.
Cedar Rapids, actually.
Thank you.
With there being so many, or these iconic characters and being so many classic iterations of them, with this show, what was something that you were excited to explore that was maybe new or rarely explored before?
Ooh.
I mean, I think the easy answer for us is the idea that they were parents. I always liked the idea that it was, not their origin story anymore, but the origin story of their kids in a way. So that to me was the appealing thing about it, was just really diving into something that hadn't been done in any of the other iterations before.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I hear a lot at Comic-Cons or from fans is just how grounded the show was, which was the intention. And, I have a young daughter, and I think when you introduce children into the equation, I feel really grateful because that gave us so much, the stakes are so much higher if your kids are in danger. But yeah, nobody had done it with kids on live action before, and I think that was amazing. Yeah.
You can give it less tepid applause than that. Come on.
And exactly. I think the same thing for Lex. We always read or see the relationship between Lex and Superman, and to sort of give him not just a backstory, but a family, and connect it with the themes of the show, which has always been family, and the loss of his child, and to see how he processes that, and then goes after Lois because of it, when historically, his real enemy or nemesis is Superman. So to see that twist and sort of see Superman have to kind of defend, but it's not really, the conflict is not really between the two of them until it is. It's really between him and Lois, and I thought that was very interesting.
I think it's interesting that you are so intimidating that people wanted to applaud for Bitsie's answer, but then you raised your microphone to speak, and everyone's like, "Oh, we simply can't.
I'm
You have
sorry.
control of this whole room. Don't use that for
Next
evil."
speaking.
Thank you so much for your great question. Lovely friend on this side. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, my name is Gianni. I am from the suburbs of Chicago, Grays Lake. If you know where Six Flags is, it's like 10 minutes from there.
Thank you for being specific.
Such an honest answer. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm from Chicago. We're in Chicago. Well, actually, I'm in suburbs.
So my question is, how would you compare your Superman and Lois roles to other iconic characters like Derek, Carol, and Juliet from Grimm?
How would I compare them? Ooh.
Yeah.
Clark is a lot happier. Just in general. Smiles a lot more, which was nice. You know.
And a completely different transformation.
Yeah, exactly. It's quicker. The transformation was quicker, I will say. Putting on the suit was slightly faster than putting on the werewolf makeup. So
You know, the most obvious answer is that Lois Lane and Clark are really iconic characters that have existed for a very long time. Obviously, we felt like it was a huge honor to step into these roles. You know, Grimm was an original show. I always feel like I played 3 characters on that show.
Which you did.
Yeah, it was like Juliet, and then Juliet as a Hexenbeast, and then Eve, and it felt like Eve was the kind of big badass one. I remember at the end of season 1 calling the showrunners and saying, you know, and I'm not a very passive person, and I was like, this is very passive, and like this is a true story. If there's any Grimm fans out there, in the pilot, she was a baker. And I'm like, this is a story about like monsters and scary stuff. Like, what am I gonna do? Lob muffins at bad Vesson? So I, you know, and I had a French bulldog, and I was like, can we at least have her like be a veterinarian or something where she can actually help out? And, yeah, you know, the main difference is that was an original concept, Grimm, and this was. A lot of it was, you know, obviously we had the new factor of them being parents, but really wanting to honor the aspects of these characters that have made them so iconic and beloved for so long.
Thank you so much for your great question.
Thank you.
Hi, Clark. What's your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
My name's Charlotte. I'm from Wisconsin, and my question is, was it cool like playing Bizarro and like seeing it all play out and stuff?
It was really fun. I always say with Superman, there's a certain amount of freedom that you have, but you are kind of playing within a box of like things that you have to hold true to that character. And with Bizarro, it was kind of like anything goes. So it was really fun. There was actually, he had like these like twitches that he was doing, and in the very beginning, the first few times I did it, I don't remember who was directing that episode, but they were kind of like, maybe like tone that down like a little bit. But I was like, for me, so I had these really, really bad twitches as a kid, and I really wasn't necessarily thinking about doing that, but then my sister said that my nephew had started doing some of the same ones that I had done as a kid. And so I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to kind of just bring this back to this character for some reason, because I don't know why that's coming up right now. But yeah, it was a bit of a thing just to, when I did Teen Wolf, same thing. When we do like the transformations of the werewolf, I was like, you know, like this was a really stressful time in my younger life when I had these tics and I didn't know if they would ever go away or not, which they eventually did. But I was like, I'm going to try to use these for some good and throw it into something. So I would use those for like the transformation scenes. I would do these little tics that I used to have. It was like either moving my head or like I would like extend my jaw and all this kind of stuff. So I brought it back for Bizarro, and it was fun to kind of like put that little personal thing in there and kind of a like nod to my nephew of like, you're good, dude. It's gonna be all right. You're all right. So,
You also had a lot of fun when you got to eat the rat.
I had a lot of fun with the eating the rat scene. But I had more fun planting one of those rats in Bitsie's bag when she wasn't looking. So she came back from
He owes me a scone.
She came back from a break and went to look in her bag and had a handful of treats, and they all went flying across the room.
You still owe me a scone.
I
Because
do
by
owe
the
you
time
a-
we went back to
I do
Crafty,
owe
they
you a
were out of
scone.
scones.
I do owe you a scone, yeah.
Okay, so at the next Superman and Lois reunion panel, someone ask about the scone. Thank you so much for your great question.
Thank you.
Hi, nice friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what
Hello,
is your
my
question?
name is Jerome. I'm from Chicago proper. Anyway. But actually, it's not really a question. It's more of a comment. One of my favorite moments was when Clark, not Superman, went to go confront the guy at the cafe about pulling a gun on his wife and son. Because it was at that moment, it was just like, oh no, this is the husband. Like, no, you ain't gonna, I don't give a care. Superman does the other stuff. You mess with my family, we got a problem. So I just love that scene. And I love your beard, it is mighty.
What's your beard care routine? What's your
beard.
beard care routine?
Your beard.
Ignore it,
Ignore it.
and it grows.
Okay, so then
I took about 3 inches off of it when I landed in Chicago on Thursday.
Did you really?
Yeah, I FaceTimed my wife, and she's like, hey, what's going on? She's like, you cut your beard.
You would have looked like
yeah.
a young
She was
Santa
happy.
Claus.
No, she was happy. She was not. It was getting a little
Yeah.
A little gnarly.
monosyllabic.
So because you said you do nothing, then my follow-up question is, what is it like to be God's favorite? To still look so magnificent.
I'm with you.
The echo is a bit.
She was giving you a lovely compliment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice friend over here. What is your name? Where are you
Ask the
from?
question,
And what
I go,
is your
"Thank you."
question?
Hi, my name is Ellen. I'm from Chicago, and my question is for Tyler. I'm a longtime Teen Wolf fan, and I watched Superman and Lois, and then I've been rewatching Teen Wolf, and I see a lot of similarities between Derek and Clark, where you inherited these powers, but then like you lost your whole family, so no one's really there to teach you to use those powers, but then you're saddled with the responsibility of teaching the next generation how to use their powers. So I was wondering if Derek had any influence on your approach to playing Clark.
I never tied anything directly from, like, I never was like working with the Clark character and thinking like, oh, this from Derek, because at least for me, it's like you kind of, you know, those are characters that you play, and then it kind of like when we're filming, like sometimes you guys will remember lines from a scene or something and ask us about it. When we do a scene, like we've done that scene and we go straight into another one, so it's kind of that thing where like, okay, cool, so I've done that, that's gone now, and you make room for the next thing. I feel a little bit that way with the character stuff. It's not that I'm gonna pull from that. I just think that like they had kind of similar aspects to them. I think they were both very loyal. I think they always were trying to search, like, you know, Derek was more searching like who he would die for and give everything up for. I think Clark is a little bit more just that way inherently, but still like that drive. So I think there's just a lot of things that obviously they have very different lives and very different personalities, but I think there's a lot of things that are similarly very important to them. So I think that's probably where that kind of came from, but not necessarily pulling from that character.
Reddit calls them both daddy. You know? Thank you so much for your great question.
Thank you.
Hi, friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, I am Jomi. I say I'm from Chicago, but I'm actually from Plainfield, Illinois.
Woo!
Which is about an hour out of here. But I just want to say, first of all, Tyler, you are my all-time favorite Superman.
Oh,
I love you, all you guys. But my question is, the finale of the show was called It Went By So Fast, and that episode just hit a bunch of us, and me personally, for a lot of reasons. And I was actually talking to Bitsie, and I talked to Michael a couple days ago. I have the thing tattooed on my arm right here.
Nice.
See it? But my question to you guys is, during the ending scene, Clark talks about holding on to love, holding on to friendships, holding on to family. Playing these characters, you know, Superman is the embodiment of hope, Lois Lane is bravery and kind of fearlessness. What lessons have you guys learned from those characters? How have they impacted your lives, and like, how do you kind of use the qualities of those characters to tackle on obstacles in your life, and maybe look for some sort of hope? And what advice would you give to like everyone in here to kind of do the same thing?
That's a big question for Sunday
Yeah, sorry, I was talking a
lot. The thing I always loved about Superman and about Clark was his optimistic and hopeful nature. I always say, like, when I was like really young, I was like I was a romantic, and then in my 20s at some point, I went like very cynical for a while. And then at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I feel like it's a choice. This cynical thing sucks. It really is not any fun. Because I think if you look at the world, like, it's the best place you could imagine and the worst place you could imagine at the exact same time, all day, every day. Both of them are true. If you say the world is the best place ever, you're right. In a certain area at a certain time, you're 100% right. If you say it's the worst place ever, you're also right. So it's not to say that one doesn't exist and the other does. They both do simultaneously. So for me, it's more of a focusing on the fact that things are great and where they're not, let's make them better. As opposed to just the idea of like, well, inevitably something's gonna suck, so why even care about any of the good stuff? That's what I liked about the character, was his focus on that. And I think his desire to try to make the places that aren't great better. So that's the thing I try to stay with when things are going crazy and everybody's kind of like, what's going on? So that's what I liked about him.
You know, Tyler and I have gotten this question a lot, and the reality is we both have just innately a lot of characteristics that Lois and Clark had. For me, I really love the way they wrote Lois because she really stood her own ground, and if there's one takeaway, it's you don't need powers to be empowered. You know, that is a choice, and you be brave, and you just, you know, one foot in front of the other. And speaking of the scene that someone just mentioned about when he goes and confronts the guy who like pulled a gun on me, the Lois was standing there and she held her own. Yeah. She was like, you don't mess with my kids. So there was that. And then, you know, the qualities of Lois Lane that have existed since 1938, which was a moment in time where women weren't necessarily portrayed in television or movies or comic books or books as being badasses and in the workplace, and she was, and that's gotta, you know, that had to have inspired a lot of women in the 30s and onward, and still do. Like I've met people at cons who are like, I'm a journalism major right now because of Lois Lane. But I think a lot of it for me was the realization that you can make that choice to be courageous and to stand up for truth and to stand up for justice. And I tried to do that in my daily life. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Nice friend in the Jersey. What is your name, where are you from, and what is your question?
Hi, my name is Steve, and I am from the only town I believe has a booth here at C2E2, which is Lockport.
Woo!
Which I didn't know till I walked by and went, what? Why? But my question is, another person asked about new things you'd like to explore about your characters. There were a lot of actors who portrayed your characters before you, who kind of passed the torch on to you. Are there any previous actors where you looked at their work and went, I gotta grab this quirk or this idea and kind of pull it into my rendition of the character?
So I'm so glad I was honest about this answer years and years ago when I first got it, because I don't have to lie at these things. I didn't grow up with the character. I obviously knew who Superman was, I mean, who doesn't? But I had never seen any of the iterations before. And when I was first cast in this in 2016 for Supergirl, I kind of knew, I was like, okay, so I have two ways to go with this.
Did you see an episode of Lois and Clark?
I have like a visual memory of my mom watching the Dean Cain, Terry Hatcher show. I couldn't tell you what the episode was about, but I just remember seeing Dean in his outfit on camera, and I was like, oh, that's Superman. But I just never had seen them, and when I got the job, I was like, okay, so I'm either gonna go back and watch everything and do all my homework, or I'm gonna listen to the voice in my head, which knows how I am, and had I watched anything, immediately, instead of doing that, pulling ideas, I'd be like, okay, so I can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that. I would have been so hyper aware of things that other people had done that I would have felt as if that was off limits, because someone's gonna be like, oh, he's just taking that from so-and-so, and he's just taking that. I didn't want to do that. I felt like I had a really good sense of who the character was. I was cast just based off a meeting with Greg Berlanti, so there wasn't a read, there wasn't anything like that. We just kind of talked about the character. And so I always felt a great confidence from Greg that I understood the character, and so I just went with that. So anything that's similar, that's a coincidence. Anything that's different, it's not an intentional thing to separate my character. It's just who I innately thought Clark was, who I believed he was, and who I believed he was as Superman. So, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody that's played the characters before, but I just know the way that my mind works, and I would have immediately felt like, okay, so that's off limits, and I would have felt very limited I think, in the choices I was going to make.
Yeah, I had seen the original Donner film with Reeve and Margot Kidder years prior, and I had also been told throughout my life, hey, you look a lot like Margot Kidder. So when I auditioned for it, I was like, oh, that's so funny. I've always been told I look like Margot Kidder. And then the scene they had me read, there was just one fairly quick scene, was cut from, I want to say maybe the second one, where
they're in the hotel room.
Yeah, and she shoots him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't die. And so I made the choice, because I was also like pregnant at the time when I was auditioning. And it was a recurring, and I made the choice that once, I think what I had heard after the fact, that a lot of the actors were playing it really serious. And when she shoots the gun, which like I did I go, I knew it. Like something kind of cute and sassy, and the producer started clapping. So I was like, all right, they like that. They like that take. It was a different take. But I too decided, all right, I've been cast for a reason. One of the producers knew me, and so I purposely avoided watching anything, and I think that was a really good decision, because then we really brought ourselves, and we brought our own, take on the characters.
Yeah, I actually had, I don't know if you remember this from one of the movies, but we had a PA on our set, and he had come to get me from the trailer one time, and he's like, hey, they're gonna call you in 10 minutes, and I went, oh, okay, and I went like that, and he goes, oh, did you, and I was like, did I what? He's like, did you do that because of Reeve? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, Reeve in the movie used to go like, and I was like, oh, I never knew that. I have not done that ever since. Since he did, I used to do that all the time, just as like cool, gotcha, like good to go. I didn't do that one more time on set ever again, because all of a sudden I was aware of it. So then I was like, wait, how did I do that? I was like and it just gets in your head. So that's why with notes on set and stuff, sometimes I tell the director, I'm like, if I'm doing something that you like, do not tell me. Because chances are it's just something that I'm naturally feeling and it's working, but as soon as you tell me like, hey, that thing that you're doing after that line, I love that.
Kill it.
Now, as soon as we start the scene, the thing I'm thinking about the most is that thing that he likes after that line. And I may not have even been thinking about it beforehand, but now that I am, I'm like, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, and then you're not present anymore.
Now I'm
you're
trying to make this thing happen. So it's a weird mind thing, yeah.
I also think there's an interesting thing with the Superman universe, or universes. I've said this before, and I've gotten a hard time for it, but most people understand. Like, Superman fans are incredible, but you guys, you fucking hate each other. Like, everybody loves Superman, but they love like their idea of Superman. So everybody has their own idea. So you're never really in a situation except like this, where you're here to see a specific Superman. The fandom itself is so big and has spanned so many generations, and there's been so many Supermans and so many Loises, and even I think more so Lexes in different directions, because there's been different Lexes for similar Superman. We were in a great situation where we were sort of beyond canon to a degree, with where the comics are, with him being older and parents, and the same thing with Lex. We've never seen him at this stage in his life, and there's been so many retcons and different origin stories, and it kind of gives you a freedom to not really have to worry about what was done before. Because there are some, guiding principles, with Superman, where he sees the good in people, and Lois, and she's investigating and finds the love and stuff, and Lex just fucking hates everything. But this was so different because it did, again, as we talked about a second ago, this ties it into his family, something that we've never really seen before. We've heard about his daughter, but this is different, where he has lost his daughter, and you are seeing the man behind the man you've been led to believe you know. And I think that in our case, it's a study in the danger of singular focus. But historically, Michael Rosenbaum is my Lex, Gene Hackman, Clancy Brown, I mean, there's been so many amazing iterations of Lex, but I think that our story didn't deal with any of the same things that they dealt with. So it gave me freedom to create a completely different Lex, and visually we played with all the different versions of Lex historically. So I think we were in a very unique position to not feel obligated to what had come before, because nothing came before. We are the first of this. And I think it will live as that, because Superman always lives in that age of, I don't even know what, he's like 30s-ish? But I mean, in theory, when he's really just out of school and going to, so in essence, he really would be 25.
Yeah, like mid-20s.
But forever. And we're not. We're beyond all that.
Yeah, I remember right before we premiered, or once we were getting picked up straight to series or whatever, I was thinking, you know, because I had seen a lot of this sort of, you know, Zack Snyder, people don't like this, people don't like that, and I was expecting to get some hate online about like, oh, well, you're not my favorite Lois, or he's not my favorite Clark, or whatever. And I think because the show was so grounded and so relatable, I saw none of that. I remember thinking...
You didn't? I'm kidding.
I just remember feeling like, wow,
Actually...
They were like really warm.
We have a very healthy, joking relationship. I'm not being...
We were really warmly embraced by the fans. And I think a lot of that also had to do with, you know, and major credit to our showrunner and creator, Todd Helbing, a lot of the fans really liked this version of Clark and Superman, where it kind of goes back to an emphasis on hope. And, you know, he had all these cute, like, geeky scenes, and he's sweet, and he's like, thanks, my mom made it for me. Everyone loves that scene. And I think all of that sort of, you know, that, and also just interacting with the fans, I remember thinking, oh, that didn't happen. Great. Love it.
Thanks so much for your wonderful question. Hi, friend.
Hi there.
That's the Marvel shirt. Get out. That's the wrong panel. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, my name's Corey. I'm from Southern California.
Be more specific.
Okay, you want High Desert, San Bernardino? Is that close?
San Bernardino.
Yes.
Corona Norco, man.
I didn't go there. I went to Riverside. So. Okay. Fan of Smallville. Fell in love with your show afterwards. If you could choose to write, if you heard the song Brad Paisley, Letter to Me? Letter to my Brad Paisley? Letter to Me. It's like a letter he writes himself when he's older, reflecting back on his younger years, like what he should have chose to do differently, or what he grew up, what he learned from his experiences, telling his younger self. What letter would you write your character? You're older, you already have a family, adult, and everything that. What would you tell your younger character self to watch out for, how you want to evolve, or pit holes, or yeah.
As our characters?
Yes.
Like what would the Clark that I played write to younger Clark?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I'll start.
Go for it.
Kill them all.
That's the headline coming out of this panel.
Before it's too late.
While you can.
That's a great answer. I feel like in that case, it'd be watch out for Lex.
I like that brevity is the soul of wit now. Bitsie, what would Lois write to younger Lois?
Right, kill Lex.
Thank you for inspiring.
Solves a lot of problems.
Early Superman just got that much more exciting.
I mean, I feel like lean on those around you, probably. I feel like there was a couple episodes that we kind of got into that, and, you know, when he loses his powers and has to find a new way to contribute and find a new way to be a team player. So I think, you know, maybe learning that a little bit earlier on. But I don't know, I have a weird thing in the idea of, like, you know, you kind of have to go through things to know and learn those lessons. So the idea of being told, you can tell somebody something, but, you know, everybody kind of has their own individual journey, and sometimes someone can tell you like the stove is hot, don't touch it, and it doesn't matter, you're going to. So the idea of like writing backwards to me has always been a bit of a thing. I'm appreciative of like when I've learned lessons in my life that I really learned them and grew through that experience. So I've never really necessarily been a fan of the idea of like going back and telling my younger self anything. And I'm like, no, I'm glad I've gotten to those conclusions as they've come to me, in a way.
Thank you for inspiring such violence with your incredibly thoughtful question. Hi, nice friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
I'm Delilah, and I'm from Wisconsin. And for one, stop swearing. There are more than one kids in here. But also, what was your favorite season?
Jeez, Lex. The real villain in the room.
There's more people to kill than just Superman. Note to self.
The true.
You are 100% correct, and I do that every time. I will only say in my defense, you should have heard me about 6 years ago. I've gotten better.
So what is everyone's favorite season?
I mean, I love season 1 because we were establishing the tone of the show, and we had a wonderful director, Lee Tolan Krieger. So I feel like the first, I told someone yesterday who was a Grimm fan, and they hadn't seen it. I'm like, watch episode 1 and 2. And if you don't like it after episode 1 and 2 of season 1, then you don't have to keep watching it. But the cancer storyline was personally really hard for me. Just, it's hard to not take it home with me. But I would say my favorites were probably 1 and 4, as sad as it was to have a shortened season. And also, we were initially told the show was going to go 7 or 8 seasons. That didn't happen. I have said this before, and it's not like it wasn't great, but my least favorite season was the second one. We were worried. Tyler and I were at some cons in Manchester and Wales, and Todd Helbing and Brent Fletcher, who was a co-runner at that point, called me and we FaceTimed, and they said, how do you feel about Lois, the main storyline for season 3 being really aggressive breast cancer? And I remember kind of saying, let me get back to you, and talking to him, and we were sort of concerned because we're like, this is a superhero show, and that's intense. And it's a lot of people, it's like it was cathartic, cancer's sort of like, there's very few people that cancer hasn't affected. My grandfather died of cancer. I've had friends who've had breast cancer, and that ended up being one of the most beloved storylines on the show. That was season 3. And then 4 was great because, I loved working with Michael, and he was such a great Lex. And
Swearing all over the set.
Yeah. And I have to say, as sad as it was that the show ended, they did a really beautiful job wrapping it all up. A lot of people, I've met very few people who didn't really love the series finale. I was telling someone yesterday that the last scene we shot, which is intentional because the ADs, the assistant directors, make the schedules. The last scene we shot for the whole series was the scene where the door opens and I'm in the red dress, and so it was emotional.
Yeah, I think they all kind of stand out in my mind as very distinct seasons. So that was something that was really exciting, was they all felt different. It's really hard for me to pick a favorite, but I would say I was very proud of the way that the whole team wrapped up the show, because I think it's a very difficult thing to end a series. And to do it in the way with the restrictions that we had and having to do it sooner than anticipated, I thought I was really proud of the way that the last season wrapped up the show. I thought they did a very good job of that. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of the cast was cut from, maybe they had a contract where all episodes produced, and then for the final season, we had such major budget cuts that they're doing 3. You have a guaranteed 3 episode, and that's must have been very hard for the writers to navigate, making the show feel like, somebody who's been in every single episode leading up to it, is still there kind of in spirit or present, and they did a really great job with that. And the other thing we've always given massive kudos. People seem to think that because we streamed on HBO Max that our VFX budget, because our VFX was incredible. Like our Doomsday, are you kidding me? We did not have an HBO Max budget. They created this gorgeous VFX out of love for the IP, out of love for the show, out of love for the writing. But this was not some crazy budget that we had. And even in the final season, when it was slashed even further, they brought it. And we all kind of came together and we made it work.
Thank you so much for your great question. Hi, friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, Chris from Chicago proper. I grew up as a newspaper reporter. Well, that was my first career. And I'm just curious, all these Lois Lanes have been like ace reporter in Metropolis, and you had to go like big fish, small pond. Did you and the writers talk about that? Like, how did you figure that in your character? Because that was fascinating to me, especially as we change media, how we consume it.
I didn't really have a choice because we moved to Smallville. What I kind of wanted to play up a little bit was that she's, we have very similar backgrounds. I personally grew up overseas. Lois grew up overseas because her dad was on army bases and everything. And so I wanted to emphasize more of the city girl, versus country mouse aspect of it. But, the premise of the show is that they moved from Metropolis to Smallville. And so I think it was a lot of sort of humor with Chrissy Beppo, who worked in the Gazette. And I'm kind of like, what? Like, we're writing a story about like a bale of hay? What? No, I love shooting. I think it was the first time, I want to say it's the Vancouver Sun. Is that the newspaper in Vancouver? They'd never allowed any production to actually shoot in the newspaper office. And in the pilot episode, we actually shot there, which was super cool. I personally would have loved a little more Metropolis stuff. I thought it was fun when we did get to go to Metropolis and kind of be downtown, and we got to meet more fans because there were 3 main locations: the stages, obviously, and then the exterior of the farmhouse. So, which was cold and muddy, and it was really hard for the crew. Nobody liked that location. But then they built a back lot for Smallville, because there's no place in Vancouver that looks like Smallville, Kansas. And for the people here who like The Last of Us, our last day of filming, and I was a little peeved, The Last of Us in season 2 took over. So keep your eyes out, because you'll see Smallville zombified for The Last of Us, because they were all walking around, with their big Last of Us budget. And we're like, this is our last day filming, could you have checked out the backlot tomorrow? But they built this really cool backlot. So a lot of it was facades. And then the only 2 places that we could shoot inside of were the diner, Victoria May's diner, and then the Smallville Gazette. But that was cool. Yeah.
Thank you for your great question. Hi, Superman. What is
Hello.
your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
I'm Brett from Wisconsin.
Be more specific.
From Waukesha, Wisconsin,
Thank
suburb
you.
of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you so much for the show. It was perfect from beginning to end. I cry every time I watch the finale, which I did just watch this week again because it's just so perfect. But I'm curious, because these characters, all 3 of your characters, will live on for longer than all of us will be alive, right? What do you hope is the legacy that you brought to each of your characters, and how that will be remembered?
How do you hope to intimidate future people taking on these roles?
I don't know if we think about it that way.
I do.
Go for it.
Then you should answer.
Again, I've said this before, and a lot of the fans, it was a really grounded, relatable portrayals of these iconic comic book characters where I felt like, and again, kudos to the writers, you could imagine that Lois Lane was your neighbor or that Clark Kent was your neighbor. And the fact that they incorporated really difficult relatable themes in this superhero show, like a late-term miscarriage, season 1, that they gave me, or inflammatory breast cancer, which is almost always fatal, in season 3. Just the groundedness, the badassery. And the other thing I liked is that they never had, like, Lois was not some damsel in distress on Superman and Lois. She carried her own, and I would, that's the legacy that I want to leave, especially, you know, in 2026, we're not, it's not 1938 anymore. Like, it's, of course there's the loving, like, and yes, you saved me and all that stuff sometimes, but I also saved you.
Thank you for saying it.
So that's kind of the legacy that I want to leave. You know, tackling real life stuff that affects so many people. I remember I've had a lot of friends who've had really crazy fertility struggles, and so when they gave me the miscarriage storyline, I was really emotional the whole time thinking about all of them. And so, you know, if there's a way to obviously pay homage to the comic books and everything, all of that, but also bring in some like real life real life poop that people have to deal with.
I'm just saying.
Shit poop.
I'm just saying.
All right. Tyler's the only good one.
It's the medical term. It's a medical term.
Thank you for your controversial question.
I'll quickly say one of my favorite lines from the show was when Clark's doing the interview and saying that he's Superman, and she asks, like, what do you want the world to know about you? Kind of the same. He's like, I'm just a regular guy. I really think that, like, sometimes there's this idea that people that do great things or, you know, in a way have some predisposition to be those people, and like, it's just a regular guy. Just a regular guy with an idea or a drive or a commitment to something. And so I think in those times where maybe you feel as if like there's something that you want to do or maybe feels like it's too big, like it's not. You can. He's just a regular guy. Like, now he's got superpowers. That's a separate thing. But he is just a guy who's there for his family and wants to make the world a better place for them and take care of them. And so that was my hope, is that he would be seen that way. Just can do extraordinary things. So.
Hi, nice friend. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, my name is Ash. I'm from the Bay Area.
Be more specific.
Okay. I'm like near Oakland.
Great.
But I'm here in Chicago for college. This show has so many vulnerable scenes and a lot of emotional acting. And I was wondering the acting process behind that. Like your process and your mindset when performing these scenes, but also how you're able to take off your acting clothes and then go into your real life. And yeah.
Great question.
I mean, to me, training, that's like, just kind of, you work on doing that. There was an exercise that my coach had that was great. Like, we had basically like a little stage in the room, and you would stand there and he's like, now step off, now step on, now step off. He goes, now anything that you thought or felt when you were on the stage, that's not yours. It doesn't belong to you at all. So anything there that you're being very present for, that stays there. And then when you step off, now it's yours again. So that was just like an exercise we would do. I found that helpful. But it is tricky. Like, to what Bitsie said, season 3 was tricky, more so for her, but also I experienced that as well. But like, when you're doing a show, like, you're very much not spending time kind of in the in-between moments of people's characters' lives. Like, you're living the highs and the lows, because that's where a lot of the story is. And so for us in that season, there were a lot of very low lows. And it's not as if you experience that 2 minutes that's actually happening for the characters' lives for 2 minutes and then move on to the rest of your day that is now kind of in between a high or a low. You're just living in that low for 12 to 14 hours that day. So it's just constantly staying in that space. It is heavy, and it does get like draining. So it is a bit of a challenge, but you know, that's also what we're kind of paid to do. So we got to figure it out.
I think, you know, when the first time they gave me a really hyper emotional episode was the miscarriage. It was season 1, episode 8, and I remember just, you know, channeling the pain of all of my girlfriends and, some of their husbands or whatever, of trying so hard to have children and not being able to. And, but really just being in the moment, and I had that really emotional scene with Jordan Elsass at the end, and I remember I pitched to the writers that it would be a late-term miscarriage, because I have 2 friends who lost children during labor and had to bury babies that, and so originally it was just that Lois was going to have a miscarriage, and I talked to Todd and I said, hey, what if we, because there's a picture that she shows him, I'm like, what if we make it that she is visibly pregnant? So, that there is the possibility that it could have been a viable pregnancy that was lost, and it would just make it so much more intense. Now, with the breast cancer stuff, that a lot for me because I had so much emotional stuff on the show, I really have to because you're doing it over and over and over and over again for hours, and it's hard to sustain that. I remember I did a movie with Tim Roth, and I was crying in the green room because we were about to do the scene, and he goes, we're starting with the wide, save it, and also drink a lot of water. Drink a lot of water because you need to stay hydrated when you're crying that much. Now, though I will say it wasn't a mistake, because I was so inspired by these women, but when they gave me the breast cancer storyline, I kind of really delved into the research of breast cancer and all kinds of stuff, just like Lois would have, and I spoke to this oncologist, and she referred me to a bunch of women who either had, were in, they don't call it really remission anymore, now it's no evidence of disease, or were actively going through it, and it was heavy. I mean, this is heavy stuff. I spoke to this one mom. She was a single mom, badass. She, had been one of the OGs at like Google Maps, then she was at Apple, and she had a really aggressive kind of breast cancer, and she was allergic to painkillers. So she couldn't have the kids near her for 2 months because she was so afraid that if the kids even like touched her, she would be in such agony. There was another woman I spoke to in Washington. She found out she had breast cancer when she had a 5-month-old baby she was nursing, and she just squeezed her boob to see how much milk was in it, and she found the lump. And she was saying, she had 3 kids, that she was so weakened by the chemotherapy. I pitched this to Todd. We didn't end up doing it. We had Tyler carrying me up the stairs at some point, but she was telling me that she would get home from chemo and have to literally crawl upstairs to get her kids in bed. And there was a certain point that I remember my husband David was like, because I was like, there's 2 more women I want to talk to, and he's like, it's enough. Like it's you're not leaving it at work now. You're coming home sad. You're all this, and we have a young kid, and I was like, you're right, because I spoke to 11 women, at length. I asked them all, can I take notes? I would forward the notes to Todd and Brent. This person went through this. This is something really interesting, like the climbing up the stairs thing. We could maybe incorporate that. But season 3, my husband was directing the episode where my dad dies, and I had said to him, I was like, can you start on my close-up, because this is going to be intense. It was also Dylan Walsh's last day of work, and I loved working with him. He played my dad. And when Doomsday snaps his neck, we were in a close-up, and I puked in my mouth. I was so, it was so intense for me, and Dylan sold it. He kind of went like, and then dropped. And I saw it, and David was like, I mean, people were crying, and also I was like, he's like, we can't use that. You just vomited in your mouth, very obviously. And then the other thing was like, that was so rough, but like I'll go into a corner. Tyler knows this, because I had so much crying stuff where I'm like, don't talk to me unless they're calling me to set, because it's just the sheer amount of times you have to do this over and over and over again really takes it out of you. And then of course they flip around and it's Dylan's turn, and I want to bring it for him. You want to be that generous actor, because he was being so generous for me. But man, that was probably the hardest, even more so than flipping him over and seeing without the heart. The day that Doomsday killed General Lane was probably one of the worst. And then I made the very stupid mistake of, because they were like, David's like, whatever you're feeling. I drop to my knees and I crawl like across the parking lot to him, which I then have to do like 35 times. So my knees were like bloody the next day. We ended up putting some little Band-Aids on, but they were like, hey, we like that, keep doing that. And I was like, oh God. Thank you. I know it's a long-winded answer, but
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, nice friend with the baseball cap. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Sure. I'm Deepak from the Logan Square neighborhood of Chicago.
Thank you
and
for
my
being
question
specific.
is, can you describe some of the acting choices you made in portraying the Bizarro versions of your characters? How you differentiated from, say, the Yellow Sun version versus the Red Sun version? Some of the acting choices.
Some of the choices. I mean, well, the Twitches was one specific one. That was one. I mean, honestly, with Bizarro, what I was really leaning into was just the freedom of it, and feeling like there really. I remember Johnny Depp talking about Jack Sparrow and just saying how much he loves playing a character that irreverent. Like, there's just you can just kind of go for it. It was really just leaning into the idea of like you can't really make a mistake with this character. So the freedom of that, the just like no. I think with Superman, there's always a calculation going on of how this needs to be done and be done right, and the moral compass of it. Where with Bizarro, it was just like I have a mission and I'm gonna do it. That's it. Like it was just more simplifying it and taking out any of the I don't know, process of making a decision that feels right and just being like, nope, I got to do that. So if you're in my way, I'm going through you. It just is what it is. So it was more of just like a directness with that character.
There was a Bizarro episode. Tyler and I had so much fun. It's like where everything's reversed because it was kind of the only time because their relationship was really rock solid. This wasn't like some love triangle thing with Lana Lang. They were really madly in love with each other, but we got to get into a fight and he was like spitting on me and man, it was fun. You're like, yes, we get to, yeah.
I was yelling and spit would come out while yelling. I didn't actually look at her and go,
nope, that's the sound bite.
Spitting in her face.
Good clarification.
I just wanted to make sure. That's not
I
like
would
on
say
an uncut version somewhere.
I would say obviously I didn't do the Bizarro stuff, but there's similarities with the Walking Dead graphic novel and the Bizarro stuff. Anytime you're playing a graphic novel or comic book character, there is an incredible freedom that comes with that because you're a superhero. And you're in the graphic novels. Tyler was talking about the highs and the lows. The highs are way higher, and then you snap to the next panel, and the lows are way lower. So when you say, our show, based on the Superman comics, but incredibly, incredibly grounded in a way that I don't think any of the I won't say any because then someone will beat me up online. That many aren't. But then you get into the Bizarro world, which is that sort of freedom that's given to you. And there is, as Tyler said, there's no wrong choice. It's almost like the wrong choice is even a better choice. As long as you commit to it, the audience is going to love it. And you become like a kid again when you're acting. You're sort of like, what are you going to do? And you need to run across the room. And you're like, you can just do whatever you want because it doesn't matter and it makes it better. So that stuff is actually exciting for us because we get to do it so rarely. Everything usually has to be so grounded in reality or it doesn't work, and we've all seen stuff like that. Those are the performances you don't prefer. But the Bizarro world and the sort of extremes of the graphic novels and the comics, so much fun to play.
Thank you so much for your question. Before we go back to our nice young friend here, this is going to be the last question of the panel because we cannot run over. Luckily, you can go up to all of these nice people on the show floor and see if they smell as good as they do from the stage. So, nice friend.
Tyler will spit on you.
But that comes with a tip, so bring your cap.
Tyler won't spit on you.
There's a slightly additional fee to that, but yeah.
What is your name? where are you from, and why is this the last question of the panel?
My name is Lucas, and I'm from Lakemore.
Woo!
And what are your favorite characters from the show other than yourselves, and why?
Great final question.
I feel like if I say anyone but the person immediately to my left here, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. But no, Lois. For me, Lois. I thought Bitsie did such an incredible job in the show, and I can't possibly overstate that. I thought what she did in the series was really, really amazing, and it really carried the show.
I mean, I agree. I have said this, and I will say this to my dying day. We have so much fun together. It's absurd. And we had never met before we were cast. And it just felt so serendipitous and so easy to work with. And also, actors have different styles of working. And Tyler and I had very similar styles of working, so it just kind of worked where, you're really present and you're just with each other and it's playful and, we wanted more playfulness. I will say that's the one regret we did have was we had so much fun when we did get like a fun, playful scene. We're like, more of that. He's an amazing Superman, and he embodied all of the qualities in the comic books that so many people have fallen in love with, and did a great job with the emotional stuff too. And I know you don't have kids, but he was, he's very close to his father, and was trying to imbue his character with a lot of his dad's traits, and we got lucky. Yeah.
Okay, tiebreaker. Who's the best character on the show?
Who's the what?
Doomsday.
You have to say Lex. That's like Lex would say Lex.
It would be. I would actually say Steel.
Yeah.
It's a great character. Great. Love the story. Everything behind him. Really, like with all the characters that Todd created, Todd and Brent. Really well-rounded, the relationship with his daughter. I was sitting here thinking about it, and I go, there's kind of a strange parallel between Lex and Steel in the show. It's the relationship he, in a weird way, wished he would have had with his daughter, but didn't. But right from the very beginning, that character intrigued me most because I knew least about him and where it was going. When the computer talks to him and is like, welcome back, Captain Lex, or whatever. I'm like, what? Wait, what? That's Lex Luthor. Oh, my God. And then there's this whole big misdirect with it. I just thought it was handled really well. And I thought the character was great because you learn so much more about him each time. And it's not always what you think. And he's not fully in control of his emotions. And he's an exciting character.
Thank you so much for all of your wonderful answers. Thank you for all your questions. Be sure that you see these people before the show ends. Give it up one more time for the cast of Superman and Lois!
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Hey, guys.